70 games? 76 games? 80 games? Whatever the MLB and MLB Players Association ultimately agree on, the 2020 season will look very different if it's played at all. The coronavirus pandemic has forced MLB to yet again look at what a season of less than 162 games would entail, but we've seen it before. So let's take a look back at how wars and labor strife have caused shortened MLB seasons in the past, so we can look ahead to 2020 and answer the question, how would that work? 1918. The U.S. had been involved in World War I for a year by the time the 1918 season was set to begin. In fact, the U.S. declared war on Germany just days before the start of the 1917 season, but that season wasn't impacted. To help in the war effort, owners chose to relocate spring training to sites closer to home and reduce the schedule from 154 games to 140 games. An average of 15 players per team were drafted for the war effort in 1918, and the Chicago Cubs, virtually untouched by the draft, met Babe Ruth and the Boston Red Sox in the World Series. The Sox won 4-2, and Germany surrendered on November 11, 1918, ending the Great War. 1972. The very first players' strike wiped out the first 2 weeks of the 1972 season. Despite teams losing an unequal number of games in those 2 weeks, the season would start on April 15th with the existing schedule. So atop the AL East that year, the Tigers and Red Sox both ended with 70 losses. But Detroit played one more game, finishing a half game above Boston. The postseason played out as normal, with winners of the East and West in each league squaring off. The Oakland A's topped the Cincinnati Reds in 7 games to win the World Series. 1981. In 1981, a midseason player strike prompted some creative scheduling. The strike ran from June 12th to July 31st, splitting the season into 2 halves. The second half started on August 10th, so the teams played about 107 games each. To compensate for the layoff, the division winner of the first half of the season played the division winner of the second half of the season in an expanded 8-team playoff. This resulted in a 5-game division series in the first round. The casualty of this was the Cincinnati Reds, who finished with the best record in baseball at 66-42, but didn't lead in either half of the season, thus missing the playoffs entirely. The Dodgers topped the Yankees 4-2 to win the World Series that year. 1995. The 1994 strike that canceled the World Series carried into the 95 season. Play resumed on April 25th after an abbreviated spring training. All teams played a 144-game schedule. The playoffs were standard, but under a new structure, as this was the first year with 3 divisions in each league and a wild card making the playoffs. The Atlanta Braves beat the Cleveland Indians 4-2 to win the Fall Classic. So those are all the instances in which baseball played abbreviated schedules. It's safe to assume teams will play the same number of games in 2020, but the rest still appears to be up in the air. There are opportunities for interesting changes this season, as well as revamped playoffs. We'll see how those materialize, but history has proven a guide, and that's how it would work.